In this video, you'll learn about several apology pitfalls that keep you and the other person disconnected. Putting these insights into practice can help you reduce tension and distance in your relationship and even help you begin to heal painful injuries from the past. If it still feels like you're paying for a mistake you made months or years ago, it's likely that this relationship injury hasn't been adequately repaired. You probably don't want to feel like you're tiptoeing around the other person and just simply trying to avoid making more mistakes. You want to feel free. And I bet you want some past injuries to be fully healed so you can move on from them and also feel more connected in your relationship. As imperfect human beings, we're gonna mess up. And the closer the relationship and more time we spend with people, the more opportunities we have to do or say some things that can hurt another person. And so when we step on another person's toes, we need to make a relationship repair. And we need to do this effectively. We need to be clear about what forgiveness is and what forgiveness is not. And we need to know that time alone will not completely heal a relational injury. Check out my other video on what forgiveness is by clicking the YouTube card above or by clicking the link in the description below. These two videos go hand in hand to help you better understand how to deliver genuine apologies that work. Forgiveness can be hard. Think about where you learned about forgiveness. Was it in your family growing up, your parents, church, or school? Think about when you've seen forgiveness go well and when it did not work. And how does forgiveness look in your most important relationships? If we're in a habit of just saying I'm sorry, and even our genuine apology seems very shallow to the other person we injured, what do we do? So to help you more effectively repair the hurts in your relationship, I'm going to share 14 insights about what forgiveness is not. First, forgiveness is not simple and quick. Feeling pressured to get over it can leave us feeling minimized and dismissed. When we feel rushed to forget about a painful injury and just move on, the other person is skipping over the important step of listening to our pain and validating our feelings. So that leads me to forgetting. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Even genuinely confessed and repaired wounds to the heart will not be easily forgotten. For protective reasons, our brain simply won't let this happen. But it's hopeful that effectively repaired injuries, accompanied by genuine, consistent behavioral change on the part of the offending person, can help the injury fade from one's memory in frequency and intensity. So if an issue keeps coming up, it probably wasn't adequately repaired. Forgiveness is also not prideful. When we don't take responsibility or own up to our part, our apology actually could make things worse and feel like gaslighting. A prideful apology has us protecting ourselves even more and delaying our readiness to discuss the issue. Next is just saying I'm sorry without changed behavior. Sometimes we have to toss out those words because they've been overused and have simply lost their power. Instead, we have to get specific about the pain we caused so the injured party will, without a doubt, feel our sincere remorse. Another phrase that doesn't usually express genuine remorse: I said I'm sorry. When we say this in an angry, impatient tone, it really doesn't help to heal an injury. It can certainly feel frustrating if we feel that we've apologized multiple times for a single offense. But the sense of pain for the offended person may be far greater than what we can guess. When we stop being caring and curious about the depth of someone's pain, it usually comes out this way. We may have also thought, well, if that happened to me, I'd be over it by now. And as I said previously, anytime someone hears, either directly or passive aggressively from us, that they just need to get over it, we're making them the problem for reacting to the hurt we caused them. That's another form of gaslighting. All right, another insight about what forgiveness is not is telling someone, I'm sorry you feel that way. Maybe you've heard this in a dismissive tone. It can feel like someone's really saying, too bad, and they don't really care enough to slow down to hear us. Instead, if we're the person who caused the injury, and after we understand even a little bit more of the other person's pain, we might try sincerely sharing that we feel hurt because the other person is hurt. Doing that, we're now able to connect with some of the pain they might be feeling. And we may have to avoid the often exaggerated validation shortcut by saying, I completely understand, or I know exactly how you feel. Because in reality, I don't think many of us can say that. Next on the list of what forgiveness is not, always fair. When it comes to attempting to heal the complex dynamics in a relationship, sometimes we have the terms justice and fairness all tangled up with forgiveness. But it's important to see these as distinct from forgiveness. Most of the time we see it as reasonable when the punishment fits the crime. But when it seems so much more severe or exaggerated, it doesn't seem fair. It's like we're being thrown out of a football game for being offsides, when the penalty for that offense should be very minor. But even when we think the other person's reaction could be exaggerated, and we think the consequence is unfair or unreasonable, we can't let that take the spotlight. We must still focus on the pain we caused and listen to the ways in which we might begin helping soothe that subjective sense of pain. If we need to have a voice in the issue, we might need to have a second conversation later. We might say, I'm seeing that I really hurt you. I'm working to understand your specific pain. Later, can I tell you where I was coming from? If we try to share our side of the story too soon, even if we didn't intend to hurt them, we may come across as defensive and dismissive. Okay, forgiveness is not always deserved. Some people forgive us when we may not deserve it, maybe because they're kind and understanding or don't want to carry the heavy burdens of unforgiveness, which include resentment and bitterness. Whatever it is, they release us, maybe even before we've fully done our part to repair the hurt we caused. This is very humbling when someone releases us prematurely. Although we might question the validity and sustainability of instant forgiveness that seems too good to be true, some people can do this very genuinely and very well. It may also feel good to us when we help people know that they're only human by forgiving them sooner than expected and by not bringing up the past to remind them of their shortcomings. Next, forgiveness is not always genuine. Just like saying, I said I was sorry in an unforgiving tone, we may also resort to only saying the minimum needed to get out of the conversation. Half-hearted apologies can compound the hurt from the original offense and produce residual pain and distance. The unresolved issue will likely come up later with an even more desperate desire to be healed, and it will catch the other person off guard. Another disingenuous apology is one that is accompanied with an excuse. We say, I'm sorry, but. These apologies feel conditional, and it misses the whole point of slowing down to validate the actual hurt that was caused. And some apologies lack sincerity because they're scripted or rehearsed. Although it's usually good to practice and rehearse what we might say to repair an injury and then anticipate the other person's response, we don't want to come across as though we're just reading a script of an apology that works for other people. We need to make it genuine in the way we would say it and how that specific person needs to hear it. But even in our best sincere efforts, forgiveness is not always reciprocated. Just because we say I'm sorry, it doesn't mean the other person must also be ready to forgive us. They have their own process and unique feelings, needs, and risks to consider. So maybe you did your part to genuinely repair the relationship, but the other person is not ready or not desiring to continue the relationship. What then? Well, we can actually forgive someone for harming us, even if they've never made an attempt to apologize or have never taken responsibility for how they harmed us. Although we may grieve the relationship, we can enjoy the individual benefits that come from moving on from the issue and preventing grudges and resentment. So similar to this, forgiveness is not always reconciliation. Although many relationships require healing and reconciliation to stay alive, sometimes relationships cannot be repaired or reconciled. If someone has passed away, there's no longer an opportunity to say what we wish we would have said, to heal and enjoy the relationship again. Another example of not deciding to reconcile includes when the other person is abusive, psychologically, emotionally, verbally, spiritually, physically, or sexually. The great freedom is knowing that you don't have to reconcile these relationships if there's an expectation of further abuse, because there's no indication that that person has changed. So that brings us to boundaries. Forgiveness is not absent of future boundaries. If we're repairing a relationship injury and working toward reconciliation after somebody has harmed or abused us, we need new and clearly stated boundaries. We should communicate safety lines that should not be crossed and approach this relationship with caution. The reality is that we must still be guarded in some areas. Especially if we've felt manipulated over a period of time, we must establish firm boundaries, proceed slowly, and regularly evaluate our sense of emotional safety with that person. Next, forgiveness is not accompanied by instant trust. When I've heard people say, "I'm sorry, will you forgive me?" I thought, shouldn't there be a much longer space after "I'm sorry" and before we demand on-the-spot forgiveness? Just as forgiveness is a process, restoring trust in some areas requires a lot of time. And depending on the relationship injury or wound and how deeply it impacted us, this process can be extensive and complex. Just because we've forgiven someone, it doesn't mean we trust them. Maybe we can start to build trust in the area where they harmed us, but even offenses and distrust in other areas that seem very unrelated can still overlap into the area we're trying to repair. Okay, lastly, as you may have guessed, forgiveness is not easy. As you've heard, forgiveness must be genuine and considerate of other people's feelings. We must also know that they might experience a greater degree of hurt than we might in the same situation. So if we've offended somebody, it's our job to patiently and lovingly ask about the other person's specific pain when they're ready to go there. When we seek to know the exact ways we've harmed them, when we've genuinely listened to the emotional impact of our actions, and when we have validated their feelings, however disproportionate to the injury their reaction seems to us, only then have we begun the process of forgiveness. Although not quick and easy, this process is very much worth it. It produces mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health and heals hearts. And the relational impact of forgiveness can strengthen a bond between two people and produce a deeper level of intimacy than ever before. Forgiveness is such a huge topic, There's so much more to learn about it and how to make it work best for our lives and our relationships. So it makes sense if you feel overwhelmed about hearing all this. Relationships are complex. But when two people are willing to create a healthy relationship, it will most certainly happen. So I do hope that you feel encouraged after hearing these insights about what forgiveness is not, so you can improve how you communicate and how you can experience a greater sense of closeness. Well, take care of yourselves and each other and enjoy this day.